Welcome back to the polls. National Security Minister Albert Kandapa is alleging that some persons may have given a different interpretation to the recent controversial comments made by President Akufo-Addo on the presence of the Wagner mercenary group near Ghana's northern borders. Of course, what we do know is that at the just ended U.S.-Africa summit, the president told U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Burkina Faso was paying Russian mercenaries with a gold concession very close to Ghanaian territory. Let's listen to the president make the comments again.
Dead partnerships.
Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. I believe a mine in southern Burkina has been allocated to them as a form of payment for their services. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana.
President Akufo-Addo there. What we do know is that the Burkina government has refuted the allegations. Ghana's neighboring country further recalled its ambassador to Ghana, signaling a possible diplomatic row between the two nations. In the last 48 hours, Ghana's National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, led a high-powered delegation to try as much as possible to de-escalate tension. Amongst many other items on the agenda, Albert Kandapa told the media that he held discussions with the Burkina leaders on how some people gave different interpretation to the comments made by the president.
We have reviewed the very, very strong cooperation between our two countries. And we have clarified to our mutual satisfaction recent reported discussions between Ghana and the United States with regard to the needed partnerships for sustainable peace in the region. During the discussions, we have reaffirmed our support, both Ghana and Burkina Faso, for our common fight against terrorism, welcoming also the early operationalization of the Accra Initiative to enable Burkina Faso defeat the terrorists who have brought untold hardship and pain to the Burkinabe people. We have discussed that concrete support from Ghana is necessary, and that Ghana will continue to advocate for Burkina Faso in the Accra Initiative and also in ECOWAS. And we have agreed that Ghana will call on West African states to act expeditiously on this matter facing Burkina Faso. We have also highlighted the importance of building resilience in vulnerable communities and support for those that have been displaced or lost livelihoods, and called for genuine partnership with the international community in this regard. We have expressed the need for our two countries to hold more regular consultations, and this we pledge to do with immediate effect. We are most grateful for the frank discussions. We are most grateful that we've been able to chart a new path going forward, and we look forward to ensuring that we will be able to go ahead with the decisions that we have arrived at, and that Ghana and other West African countries, especially the Accra Initiative countries, will continue to recognize that victory for Burkina Faso will be victory for all the other Accra Initiative countries. We must do this together, and we pledge to do that.
Well, except of what is that the National Security Minister indicated there in Burkina Faso. I want to bring in now Emmanuel Bombande, conflict resolution expert. He is also one-time former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much, sir, for spending some time with us here on The Pulse. Later on, we'll hear from James Agaga, who's ranking on Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee. But let's start off with you, Mr. Bombande. You've heard the comments by the president, and now we're leading a delegation to try and de-escalate the situation. What's the best option now for us as a nation in trying to get results fast?
Thank you for inviting me, and good afternoon to all your viewers and listeners. This, in the first place, is what we should have done. In other words, we must at all times appreciate that we have set for ourselves a foreign policy framework, or if you would call it a foreign policy guide as Ghana, that is anchored on the cultivation and development or nurturing of good neighborliness. But that guide is informed by the fact that we would always, once in a while, have problems that we need to deal with in our neighborhood and with our neighbors. And so we set that foreign policy guide to be the framework that informs how we engage with our neighbors. And that engagement is political. And to that extent, therefore, how we nurture such good neighborliness would have been to inform the transitional government of Burkina Faso that we are hearing intelligence reports that near our border, you have accepted to place mercenaries, the Wagner military or private army. And we in Ghana do not accept that, and it will be unacceptable. It will be a difficult conversation, but we do it first with the neighbor that we perceive or we consider to be behaving in a way that threatens our interests. Why is this important? Because there is no partnership in this world we can develop to respond to our problems and challenges more than the ones we do in our neighborhoods. Where you live in your neighborhood, if there is a problem and you cannot deal with it with your neighbors, you cannot go and bring people from another community to come and solve your problem. So that's what we should have done. In other words, I'm not saying that if we have good intelligence that there is such a threat, we should not raise it. What I'm saying is we raise it first with the neighbor where the threat is located. And what that means is we leverage to the maximum our own multilateral efforts. And those efforts are the Accra Initiative, they are the ECOWAS framework, they are the African Union. When we do this, it stands to good reason that should other friends elsewhere be interested, we can expand the conversation, but always keeping in mind that we are the ones taking our destiny into our own hands in our neighborhood and responding to our own challenges. That is how it should be done, but it is not too late that we are repairing the damage now, and I'm happy that the conversations are leading to something meaningful. And we should be learning from this.
Right. I want to pick up on this, the possibility of misconstruing the president or otherwise. It's part of the communique that we're getting from the National Security Minister, indicating that discussions have been held on how they believe on the Ghanaian side that the president may have been misrepresented by possibly the media or other actors in whose interest these comments may favor. Do you feel, after listening to the president, that indeed he has been misrepresented on the comments he made about the Wagner Group?
the issue is not about misrepresentation, because the president's meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken was viral. It was heard all over the world. It was not about the words. It was not about the president's meeting or communication with the Secretary of State. It is the deeper meaning that such communication sought to bring out. That we went to a superpower to complain about a problem that we should handle because we have it in our hand. That is the problem. Let us not dance around it. The president should not have engaged the United States without first engaging with Burkina Faso. That is my point. Because when you do that, you carry across to the world that we have a lack of self-belief and confidence. Keep in mind that our current president is very good at communicating to the world our sense of independence, our sense of our dignity, and carrying ourselves in a way that makes us to have the confidence that we can solve our own problems. Then you have a difficulty with your neighbor, and you want to communicate that difficulty to a superpower without discussing it first with your neighbor. It is awkward. It does not sit well. That for me is the issue. It's not about the words in the communication, my good brother.
In dealing or foiling the threats of the Wagner group, what other options are available to a Ghanaian head of state aside dealing with the Western powers? I mean, some say that we throw away positive neutrality, non-alignment in the face of what's pragmatic and what's facing us as a country. We don't want to sit down for the threats to, infiltrate our borders before we begin to act.
To start with, it is a misnomer. It is misconceived. It is out of place to imagine that Western powers would be the ones who would deal with terrorism in our neighborhoods. It does not matter what partnership and support. How we deal with terrorism is our capacity to cooperate as a people of the region, which carries all the population of West Africa, to halt radicalization, prevent violent extremism, and therefore prevent terrorism. Because the people are united against the acts of terrorism. That is how you respond. The misconceived priority is that you can deal with it militarily, and that is wrong. It's an asymmetric warfare in which the enemy is within. And the way to deal with that enemy is to confront that enemy from within. Now, I said we should leverage our own multilateral efforts. The Accra Initiative seeks to build trust and confidence amongst ourselves, first by facilitating and enhancing communication. The rest of it now becomes complementary. So I agree that when we come together and we put boots on the ground to fight the terrorists, we do so in solidarity, following the capacity of the people to work together. You don't put the cart before the horse. That is why elsewhere in this world, when armies were sent on the ground to fight terrorists, those armies withdrew in defeat. We should learn. Don't repeat the mistakes powerful nations did, which did not succeed in fighting the war on terrorism. Now, my good brother, let me add this element. There is such a deep respect for Ghana in our neighborhood. The people of Burkina Faso highly regard Ghana, and they will respect Ghana for the leadership that we exhibit. It is for this reason that the transitional government willingly and warmly welcomed our Honorable Minister Kandapa, Minister for National Security. Under other circumstances, they would have closed their door. So we should read into the deeper meanings. And the president should be well advised. I'm saying this in all sincerity. If I were sitting with President Mahama when I was Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, I would have urged him, don't even call out. Fly to Ouagadougou and engage the transitional government.
And that's why many have raised questions about the feasibility of a democratically elected president engaging a military transitional government. We're not even sure if they'll give power back to the people as they've pledged to do.
No, we've crossed that. We've crossed that. And I want to commend our president as chair of ECOWAS. He was resolute. He stood firm in insisting that ECOWAS must facilitate a transitional arrangement for a return as expeditiously as possible back to democratic rule. And so with Burkina Faso, even after the second coup d'etat, they accepted the transitional arrangement that was negotiated by the previous military government. And so on Burkina Faso, we are on course. Even where there is a difficulty, which is Mali, they finally accepted a transitional arrangement. Where there is no clarity is Guinea, where the engagement still continue. So Ghana played a role as chair of ECOWAS for the transitional arrangements to allow us back into democratic and civilian rule. And so in that context, the transitional government in Burkina Faso would be engaged because they have accepted that they are a government in transition and on their way out. And there is no indication that they are reneging on that promise. But let me, before probably you go, let me make the emphasis that just as we are engaging in the way we are doing, anybody who is our friend, including Russia, cannot behave in a way that makes us in Ghana to be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter what reasons are behind it. And that's why the Burkina Faso government cannot place itself in a situation in which it acts with other countries that threatens the interests of its neighbors, because those countries from one year to the other can choose to go or to stay with Burkina Faso. But Burkina Faso's neighbors would be with Burkina Faso forever.
Right.
And that is why in the difficult conversation, we need to make the transitional government of Burkina Faso understand that we are your neighbor, and you cannot do anything to us that makes us to feel uncomfortable. But my point is, we engage first with that neighbor before we talk about it anywhere else.
All right, then. And I just want to bring in at this point, Mr. Bombande, just hold on for us. Let's hear from James Agalga as well. He is ranking on Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee. Mr. Agalga, of course, earlier this week, I was interacting with you where you raised some concerns about the president's posture in all of this. Now we're doing some damage control, if we can call it that way. What's your impression of what it is that the National Security Minister has been able to achieve, at least a dialogue with the transitional government in Parliament? Are you happy about the development?
I indicate that my big brother, Honorable Bombande, has said it all. But earlier in the week, when I had the opportunity to interact with the media, one of the calls I made was for the president to immediately dispatch his foreign minister to go to Ouagadougou and meet with the authorities there and to apologize for the president's own reckless remarks when he engaged with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Whichever way you analyze that particular statement our president made, clearly he goofed. I mean, he goofed and created an unnecessary diplomatic row. Look, Ghana has a history. Right from independence, I think our foreign policy direction was one of non-alignment. And our non-alignment, position has served us well. But somehow, the president chose to bastardize Ghana's position as a founding member of the non-aligned movement and gone to peace camp with the West. I have no problem with that. But to go out of the way and criticize the Burkinabe authorities before the U.S. Secretary of State, when you haven't even taken steps to engage with the Burkinabe authorities on the allegations, or if you like, the intel he must have had regarding the involvement of the Wagner group in Burkina Faso, was most unfortunate. You see, and so that was why I made the call that, look, rather than sit in Ghana and be defensive, the president needed to do the needful by dispatching his foreign minister to Ouagadougou. I think the Minister for National Security visit to Ouagadougou is a step in the right direction. When we're debating the budget estimate, right before the minister himself, I made those remarks on the floor of Parliament that they needed to act with speed in order to save the Accra initiative from total collapse. Because in my estimation, first of all, why did the Burkinabés, assuming that what the president said was true regarding the involvement of the Wagner group in that country, what pushed Burkina Faso to bring on board the Wagner group from Russia to help them repel terrorist attacks in their country? It's because help is not forthcoming. One from ECOWAS, two from the AU, and if you like, by extension, the UN. That is why Burkina Faso decided to go in for the Wagner group. So rather than criticize them, we should be asking ourselves, what material support have we offered the people of Burkina Faso? And once again, I raise this point,
right,
that beyond the sharing of intelligence under the Accra initiative, don't we think the time has come for us to begin to offer Burkina Faso some form of support? Because in the 90s, when Liberia went up in flames, we intervened. How different is this from what is happening in Burkina Faso? Because the other day when we got some briefings, we were told that, look, out of 13 regions, about 7 of them have been taken over by terrorists in Burkina Faso. Do we want to fold our hands, allow the Burkinabés to handle their own matter until a caliphate, an Islamic caliphate, if you like, is established in Ouagadougou? Would that make us any safer? So we think that we must be proactive.
All right.
Beyond the Accra initiative and how well it has served us.
All right.
So Kandapa's visit to Ouagadougou is a step in the right direction. I also agree entirely with my brother, the Honorable Bombande, that after Kandapa's visit, I think our president himself should fly to Ouagadougou and allay the fears of the military authorities in that country that they have a partner in Ghana so far as they are quest to get rid of terrorist elements in their country. I mean, it's concerned.
And I'm grateful. James Agalga is ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Let me wrap up with you, Honorable Bombande. The way forward, you know the dynamics of this. Will this be the end? The fact that our National Security Minister is currently in Burkina Faso, or there will be a need for some more diplomatic interventions to bring this matter to a long-lasting solution?
There will be a need for more diplomatic engagement. And that political engagement, in my view, must be daily, must be constant. But the Honorable Agalga made a very important point. That engagement should include a clear understanding of our lackadaisical attitude as ECOWAS and the African Union in responding in good time to respond effectively to the challenges that confront us. Let me make a reference to one of our respected elder statesmen, former President John Kufuor. He used to make a statement that Ghana must hit above its weight. And what he meant was that sometimes in Ghana, we underestimate our own value of the diplomatic leverage we carry. Now, our president, not only should he, in following up to repair fully and restore our relationship with Burkina Faso, but he should be speaking to President Buhari and the other leaders of West Africa that our delay every week to collectively respond to the threat of terrorism in West Africa is not going to help any of us. And so he can continue to mobilize that political will to make it possible for us to be in Burkina Faso as early as possible to support that transitional government and the people of Burkina Faso. And keep in mind, when I say support, it's not just go and fight, because sometimes when we are able to deploy, the optics send a very clear message. When terrorists begin to see the presence of ECOWAS troops as an international body of ECOWAS, the signal and the strong messaging is that we cannot continue with the behavior that we started with. Either they retreat and completely fold up, or they know that it is no longer a battle between them and Burkina Faso, but it's a battle with the entire ECOWAS region. But we have a situation in which, and I don't want to go into some of the specific details of international relationships. Whether you like it or not, la francophonie in West Africa deferred to la Côte d'Ivoire. I don't want to be public on this, right, but we all know that the leadership from that setup is currently not going down well. Senegal has issues even with, regrettably, at this age and time, about mandate and terms of mandate. So even if you look in the Francophonie setup, there's very little. Right. If you look in the Anglophone setup, Nigeria is not forthcoming. Who is left to carry this burden politically, diplomatically, to ensure that we are mobilized and ready to support Burkina Faso?
Honorable Bombade, I would want you to stay on with us. There are more developments in the West Africa sub-region that I would equally want to take your thoughts on. And that's bringing us into Africa Connect now, because what we understand is that the Gambian authorities have equally foiled a military coup attempt. And they've equally arrested 4 soldiers plotting to overthrow President Adama Barrow's administration. According to the Gambian government, the military arrested 4 soldiers linked to the alleged coup after a military operation on Tuesday. Coup attempts are not common in the Gambia, as we understand, which is still reeling from more than 2 decades under former President Yahya Jammeh, marked by authoritarian and alleged abuses. Well, Jammeh himself ceased power, as we know it, in 1994 and foiled several attempts to overthrow his government before he lost that election in 2016, bringing in Adama Barrow. But Honorable Mbande, just before I bring you back, I want us to go to Gambia now. Let's hear from Omar Wale. He's one of the broadcast journalists working in the country there, just to get the very latest. Omar, welcome to the polls here on Joy News. What's the latest in the Gambia as we speak, and what more is the government saying about what's happening there? And kindly unmute for me, Omar, so I can get the point you're making. Omar, kindly unmute for me so I can get the point you're making. I'm just asking about the latest in the Gambia as we speak.
So, thank you so much for having me. The latest is that the 5th person has been arrested. As of yesterday, 4 people were arrested. But the 5th person from the Presidential Guard Brigade has been arrested. And 2 more other people are still at large. So that is the situation now. ECOWAS, the African Union, and the civil society in the country and opposition parties have condemned the coup d'etat.
Do we have any idea of what may have been linked to this latest attack that we're reading of and hearing of in the Gambia?
So we don't know the exact motive behind this, what motivated this alleged coupist, but there are so many factors. The Gambian military has been disgruntled following Jammeh's removal from office in 2017. Since then, the Ghanaians and Nigerians and Senegalese are in charge of the country. So the responsibilities were taken from the Gambian army and handed over to those foreign forces. And that's really demoralized and made the Gambian army to be dormant. So they're frustrated, and part of the reason is that, and Jammehs also commands significant support in the Gambian army. Most of them resigned, some even deserted the army because they say they can't be loyal to President Barrow. The relationship between Barrow and the Gambian army is not wholehearted, it's not very cordial.
I'm just wondering what the feeling is now in the Gambia. How are citizens generally feeling?
Well, mixed reactions. Some think this is not really a coup d'etat. Considering those involved, they are junior ranking officers in the Gambian Navy, the Gambian military, the police, the military police, and the State Guard battalion. So they are corporals and lance corporals and sergeants. These are junior officers. So according to military experts, they don't have any influence in the army. They have no influence over the command, and even they don't have access to weaponry. So they are not in any strategic position to, conduct any successful coup in the country. You may remember the president's security has been handled by the Senegalese. So even if you remove Barrow, the likelihood of Senegal coming into the Gambia and putting him back is possible. So like it happened in 1981 when the former president, the founding president Jawara was toppled, Senegal had to come in and reinstall him back as the president. So that is the situation.
Any sights and sounds of Adama Barrow himself? Because there are many who are wondering about his safety.
Well, he's sound and safe. Security situation is normal, and what we know, the government just issued very sketchy statements that are not very detailed. They will come with 2-paragraph statements and inform the public. But they still did not tell us what motivates these people, the reason why they want to topple Barrow from power.
And I'm equally interested in what, of course, foreign missions, civil society is saying within the Gambia itself, knowing that the West Africa sub-region is increasingly becoming unsafe, looking at the trend of military takeovers that we're experiencing.
Yeah, so that part of the reason is that you look at Mali, Burkina, and other countries in the region. So what they have seen, and like I said, the army is really disgruntled. So they also might want to take advantage of that, borrow a leaf from what is happening in those countries.
Umar, just hold on for us briefly. I want to hear from Honorable Emmanuel Bombande. You're also vexed with matters happening in the sub-region, sir. The latest being the Gambia attempted military takeover. This is amounting to about 6 in just this year alone. Mali has fallen to that, Guinea fallen to that, and Burkina Faso. Listening to the report coming through from Umar, what's your take on what's happening in the sub-region?
Thank you so much, and we must appreciate Umar for his excellent journalism. I have 2 observations. First, it is very sad that we continue to experience these setbacks and developments in our sub-region. My first point, which is related to this development, is that the moment some of our elected leaders in West Africa started to manipulate and influence their constitutions upon which they swore to serve their people, when they started manipulating those constitutions to extend and prolong their term of office, they made coup d'etats to become tolerant again. They created a false sense that if a military were able to stage a successful coup, they can rule and only now manage a transition and hand over. And that's why in this first observation, the collective effort to insist that in West Africa, you cannot serve more than 2 terms when you are elected by your people, which Ghana led, and which up to now, there has been no consensus upon, because Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal opposed it. We must come back to that drawing board, and all the people of West Africa must mobilize and insist that their leaders must accept the amendment of our protocol on good governance.
Well, in terms of getting consensus on the two-term limit, you agree that may be a challenge. President Akufo-Addo, at the time of being the ECOWAS chair, even found some difficulties in expediting that before the expiration of his term. But beyond that, in the case of the Gambia, don't you feel that it's much more of a transitional lapse? The fact that the country was not able to deal with the post-Yahya Jammeh era leading into Adama Barrow's, swearing in properly, a reason for which there are some of these tendencies still remnant in the country.
Yes, so my first observation was more generic. Right. It was more like general. Right. But if you listen to Omar and even the summary that you just made, the implicit understanding of our 1999 protocol, which we simply call the mechanism, is clear. When in West Africa, we feel that one of our member states is encountering an internal security situation that has the likelihood of spilling over into the neighborhood, or the likelihood of destabilizing the government that the people elected, what kicks in is the concept of supranationality in terms of security. And that's why the Ghanaian, Nigerian, and Senegalese troops keeping the security of the Gambia should not be understood as foreign soldiers. They should be understood as the ECOWAS presence that is bringing supranationality for a security arrangement that keeps the government of the Gambia stable. Now, you must understand that under the circumstances of Yahya Jammeh's exit, it does not just take 1 year for the democratically elected government of the Gambia and its security apparatus to quickly settle in and be well, if you would call it, prepared to deal with the ongoing challenges, particularly because of the nature of the divide that the military had experienced under Yahya Jammeh, now going back into an Adama Barrow government. Right. And that's why Gambia is our classical example of the need for a supranationality understanding of security to maintain the stability of the Gambia until they now get back fully in how they are able to take fully the operationalization of their security system.
Omar, let me wrap up with you. So going forward, what are we expecting in the coming days in terms of security arrangements?
Well, what we're expecting, they're going to be investigating, and they will come with more details as what motivated these people to stage these coups, as they put it. And but Gambians still cast doubt on this. Most Gambians said this is actually not true, because Barrow had every opportunity to reform the security when Jammeh left the country. And if the constitution that's supposed to guarantee 2-term limits was in place, none of this will happen. But when the constitution was drafted, it was taken to the National Assembly. It was killed, or rejected by supporters of President Barrow. And from 2017 to date, part of the ECOWAS mandate was to make sure that this security is reformed. We have a new constitution, but the security sector reform did not happen. So, and there are even allegations that non-Gambians are serving in the Gambian military. So all those things are factors. But hopefully in the coming days and weeks, we will know what is the latest, why these people attempted to overthrow the government of Adama Barrow, and who are behind them, because as far as we know, it's only 7 or 6 of them junior ranking officers in the Gambian Navy and so on.
And I thought that would have been the last, but the point Emmanuel Bombande left off on about the transitional period, and part of which we may be experiencing what is happening in the Gambia now. What has this got to do, or otherwise, with the Yahya Jammeh regime?
Jammeh still commands support, not only among the civilian population, but in the military. Like I said earlier on, some people deserted the army, some resigned because they're not happy with the way things were going under President Barrow. And he still and this coup came 48 hours after Jammeh made a telephone call and said he's coming back to the country and he's going to take charge and complete the project he started. So his party is still functional, his supporters are in the army, and so on. So he has, we can't point exactly and say he has a hand in it or is linked to it, but Jammeh factor also play a crucial role in this.
Well, Omar Wale, thank you for joining us all the way from the Gambia. Your final words, Honorable Emmanuel Bombandi.
No, it's just to appreciate and to basically say this. You cannot solve a problem when you don't tackle it at the structural level, which we call the root causes. And so, whilst we are dealing with what is proximate, what we are seeing surfacing every day, we must be reminded to go back and tackle the underlying root causes, which includes good governance, respect for term limits, and leadership that understands that you serve only at a certain period and then you leave. You cannot be there perpetually. And
I'm grateful. We'll interact once again when, of course, you're free. We know that you're a very busy man. That's Honorable Emmanuel Bombandi joining us here on The Pulse. You're welcome back. Parliament has cut 17 million cedis from the original allocation made to the Office of Government Machinery after a consensus that some of the expenditure items were superfluous and unnecessary. The almost 1.5 billion allocation was reduced after 15.5 million earmarked for Special Development Initiatives Secretariat and 2 million for Monitoring and Evaluation Secretariat were rejected by the Finance Committee. Listen to the chairperson of the Finance Committee, Kweku Kwate.
But it's important, Mr. Speaker, it's important to state that the recommendation of the committee to this House is less than the request that came to Parliament. The Minister has just said on behalf of the Minister of State at the Office of the President that the amount was 1,428,303,634 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the amount for which we seek this House's approval is 1,410,712,912 Ghana cedis. Budget estimates for the Office of Government Machinery for 2023 includes the amount of 15,568,802 for Special Development Initiatives Secretariat and an amount of 2,021,920 Ghana cedis for Monitoring and Evaluation Secretariat. The committee, after thoroughly considering the estimates, came to a consensus that the national development authorities established by law are capable of managing their affairs without the need for a bureaucratic secretariat to coordinate and at times duplicate the functions of these authorities, whilst ambulance operations ought to be properly handled by the National Ambulance Service and not the Special Development Initiative Secretariat. Also, the monitoring and evaluation functions is performed across MDAs and MMDAs, and hence there's no compelling need to maintain a secretariat for same, especially in an era where expenditure rationalization is of utmost importance.
The ranking member on the Finance Committee, Dr. Kesela Toforsen, explained that the decision to slash the budget was to send a signal to government. If they make frivolous allocations, it will be rejected by the House.
Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note that the Finance Committee of Parliament managed to save this country an amount of almost 18 million cedis. Mr. Speaker, this is because we noticed as part of the deliberations that even though we have development authorities that have been established by law with its own boards, governing boards, the Office of Government Machinery has a Special Development Initiative Secretariat that the government has apportioned 15.6 million Ghana cedis to oversee the work of these development authorities. Mr. Speaker, we think this is needless. We think the time has come for us not to behave as if we are rubber stamp, but to cut needless expenditures anytime we see them. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the needless expenditures. So we felt strongly, and the members of the Finance Committee, Mr. Speaker, felt that there is the need to send a signal that if you bring frivolous expenditures, we will cut them. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, we cut them as such. Mr. Speaker, as if that is not enough, we saw a monitoring and evaluation secretariat. The monitoring and evaluation used to be a ministry. The president disbanded the ministry. But Mr. Speaker, it will surprise you to note that even though they disbanded the ministry, the officers under that ministry have been employed at the office of the president doing virtually nothing. So, Speaker, I think this is a job for the boys. And so, Mr. Speaker, we took a strong view that we believe that the amount that has been appropriated to these two units, the Special Development Initiative Secretariat and the Monitoring and Evaluation Secretariat.
Meanwhile, Parliament has unanimously confirmed President Akufo-Addo's nominee to the Gender Ministry. Laruba Zuwaira Budu was nominated as the substantive minister after Sarah Josafo was sacked, with Francisca Oting Menta as deputy chairperson of the Appointments Committee. Joseph Osei, also presenting his committee's report, touted the two's qualification to fill the roles.
In the light of the provisions of Article 78(1) of the 1992 Constitution and the Standing Order 172, recommend the nominees, recommend to the House to adopt the report and approve by consensus Ms. Laruba Zuwaira Budu as Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, and Honorable Francisca Oting Mensah as her deputy. Mr. Speaker, I so conclude.
And some residents of Mensah North constituency in the Ashanti region are raising concerns about the poor state of roads in their community. Traders transporting their wares to the community are also alarmed at the health risk they are exposed to due to the dust that hangs in the air when, of course, motorists use the stretch. They're calling on the Member of Parliament for the area, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, to fix the road. Love FM's Nana Wachidankwa Yadom has more in the following report.
So this is Dr. Mensah Street here at the Mensah North constituency. Traders and occupants of the street over here are complaining about the abstruse state of their road and how it is strengthening their health and their businesses. We would engage some of the traders and know the kind of difficulty they are going through here at the Mensah North constituency.
Dr. Mensah Street daho nyina mfuturo ase kromu pa wande onante no mehwe se de mfuturo ni ateche pa wo ho no enya agro eni se yes apra Dr. Mensah City na yese ntinda po yesrew wo ye campaign fufuro be wurawura yes store your shops say wunya wie ye hu bie mo Dr. Mensah tuani bra Dr. Mensah na behwe
so mo ye ni kwan no na wo ma ye ashta kwan ni nyina sa kwan we nkwa wo mo cheja ya ka na pono wati assembly man ate da mi ko to assembly man wo ayi credo yadom. And I'm saying, acting, I'm oh, my, a baby, a footro, ya near my home, a footro, a riot serum, a matter say, a rank one.
No, we know, I check, and yet, since I do Kufono, MP Waseno, your strategy, Jiskaya was to Waseno, and a pair, Nkofo ye kwano kakrebi. Since they are required to year no be a mahabium. On the mission, a satire tax war, and a foot to the harm for stores. Which Cabesra Bano, or more, especially your MP Napono Aseno, or more no more, I know your quano my Achadodo. On the mission, a chepa or your quano my boy. It was asking a foot to Oto Noma, what about no money in a foot of Congo? It's your best. No Namunkasa no boy.
Nana Poache Dankwa Yadom reporting for JoyNews.
Drivers of intercity minibuses under the Ghana Private Road Transport Union are dissatisfied with the notice by the National Road Safety Authority to restrict their movement. The category of motorists restricted are the intercity services or to actually routes not exceeding 40 kilometers if they do not reaffirm their refrain from their reckless driving. Although the drivers agree the directive is to ensure their safety, they argue the rampant road crashes and fatalities on the Kumasi-Accra Highway stems largely from the poor road networks and non-dualization of the roads. Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku has been interacting with some of the drivers and passengers in Kumasi.
It's the festive season and a lot of vehicles, particularly minibuses, will be moving to the southern part of the country, including the Greater Accra and even the eastern region. But a directive from the National Road Safety Authority spells out that if these minibuses do not refrain from the high speeds and reckless overtaking on the Kumasi-Accra Highway, they will be compelled to restrict their movement to intracity. We are here at Asafo to interact with some of these minibus drivers to find out what they make of this directive.
From Accra to Nkwan, 1 week, quite near Baku see accident is anytime, but Nancy we are quite double road. This was the last time an accident is see or road.
The Accra-Suhum road used to be a single lane, but after dualizing it, there hasn't been any road accidents. The Accra-Kumasi road is bad. The leaders know what to do, but they are reluctant. A car can be damaged in the middle of the highway for 3 days. Until there is an accident, it won't be towed away.
Main road, and I do no reflector, no triangle. Na kwani kani sikwenu. Da aka bi be kwakura saka na se no. Na de chi ya no pa na omba beto saka na fisa kwemu. Ti de bia no, eya ne yekra ye dwen ho aye nti ase se, ade eya na ye mpanifo no omu demand moja brad bi ansa na om de aye de so mo fanya na.
Potros a egu kwemu no.
Potholes are the cause of the road accidents. Some communities also build illegal speed ramps on the roads. There are no markings on the road. The vehicles have trackers.
Your speed limit won't even come, police.
At every checkpoint, there are police officers. They must check the speed limits of oncoming vehicles. The number plates are identifications for vehicles. Why don't the police write down these numbers and arrest them later than to harass them? The minibuses aren't the only cause. After I heard about the directive, I have reduced my speed limits.
Me call Accra to Kumasi. Me call 80-100. Me first say I don't know say BBC crew meet me save me my passenger phone.
So these are some passengers traveling from Kumasi to Accra. We've been finding out from them if this directive comes into effect, what is really going to happen to them. So Yensho, also mucha distance I travel from maybe as a driver ebe ko ejusu ana konongopa ebe hawana.
And the other passengers, you know. Anytime station now
it won't help. There will be congestion at the lorry stations owned by the government.
I'm from Oyoko. I could have boarded a vehicle at Ejusu to Accra, but because these vehicles are not stationed, it would cost me so much.
passing a car, a way a maple, de metu, Namina baby, dear Sawam say, Americanona, Antoine was no fine good was.
For drivers and even some passengers here at the Asafo station, the directive by the National Road Safety Authority is one that will be punitive. They are calling on the authority to institute measures to ensure the strict enforcement of the road safety regulations. They are also calling on the government to fix the poor nature of the roads. From here at Asafo, my name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
The Accra-Suhum road used to be a single lane, but after dualizing it, there hasn't been any road accidents. The Accra-Kumasi road is bad. The leaders know what to do, but they are reluctant. A car can be damaged in the middle of the highway for 3 days. Until there is an accident, it won't be towed away.
Main road, and I do no reflector, no triangle. Da aka bi be kwakura sa aka na se no na de chi ya no pa na omba be to sa aka na fi sa kwamu ti de bia no eya ne ye kra ye dwen ho aye nti ase se ade eya na ye mpanifo no om demand moja brad bi ansa na om de aye de so mo fanya na
potros a egu kwan mu no.
Potholes are the cause of the road accidents. Some communities also build illegal speed ramps on the roads. There are no markings on the road. The vehicles have trackers.
Your speed limit won't even come police.
At every checkpoint, there are police officers. They must check the speed limits of oncoming vehicles. The number plates are identifications for vehicles. Why don't the police write down these numbers and arrest them later than to harass them? The minibuses aren't the only cause. After I heard about the directive, I have reduced my speed limits.
Me call Accra to Kumasi. Me call 80-100. Me first say I don't know say BBC kura metimi save me my passenger phone.
So these are some passengers traveling from Kumasi to Accra. We've been finding out from them if this directive comes into effect, what is really going to happen to them. So Yensho, also mucha distance I travel from maybe as a driver ebeko ejusu ana konongopa ebe hawana.
And the passengers, anytime station now
it won't help. There will be congestion at the lorry stations owned by the government.
I'm from Oyoko. I could have boarded a vehicle at Ejusu to Accra, but because these vehicles are not stationed, it would cost me so much.
Passing a car, a way a maple, de metu, Namina baby, dear Sawam say, Americanona, Antoine was no fine good was.
For drivers and even some passengers here at the Asafo station, the directive by the National Road Safety Authority is one that will be punitive. They are calling on the authority to institute measures to ensure the strict enforcement of the road safety regulations. They are also calling on the government to fix the poor nature of the roads. From here at Asafo, my name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
And the Ghana Water Company Limited says illegal mining activities, sand winning and pollution of river bodies are leading causes of water turbidity and still heavily impacting their objective of supplying water to every Ghanaian home. It is one of several challenges listed by the water producer at a news conference earlier today.
We also have these drones that we use, and we can see there what we normally will be using the drones for. Through the waterworks support, I was informed even now we developing some curriculum to train at the university level how they use that So a particular university has been identified, and our friend Crane will lead that in the university to begin to train people to see how we can use drone to do a lot of the things. So when you look at the water there, that's a drone picture that we are seeing. We use that for our quality monitoring also because of the Galamsey. Recently, if you heard, Eastern region, we had to shut one of the plants for 4 days. And they had to, the traditional authority had to intervene to make sure that people slow down or stop some of the Galamsey activities. So sometimes it goes down, sometimes it comes up. But we still are on the level of what we are using to treat the water. We are not going up, we are not coming down. But what we can say is that because of the Galamsey, we are using more expensive chemicals to treat than we otherwise would have been using. The aluminium sulfate is not giving us the level of quality that we want our raw water to get to before we filtrate and then disinfect. So we have to use more expensive polyelectrolytes to do that.
President Akufo-Addo is urging the media to guard against what he's been talking about in terms of the production of misinformation, especially on matters relating to the economy. Government is currently seeking the support of the International Monetary Fund for a bailout in excess of $3 billion to support its balance of payments. The IMF is expected to consider Ghana's application following a staff-level agreement reached this month. Addressing a dinner organized by the Ghana Journalists Association, the president appealed to the media to rely on verifiable facts in their reportage on the economy. There's more in the following report by Jacqueline Yeboah.
President Akufo-Addo, the guest of honor at the maiden edition of the Ghana Journalists Association dinner, pledged his unflinching support to the media and a commitment to address issues of concern raised by the association.
I want to assure you, the government will continue to support the development and growth of the media and media practice. However, whilst making such commitment, we should recognize the need for training, critical engagement by society with our media, self-regulation, and insistence on high media ethics and journalistic standards by media houses, practitioners, and their organizations. It's part of the process of building a culture of high standards of professionalism in the Ghanaian media. And assure you that I've taken due note of the various requests of your president. By the time we meet again next year, God willing, you will see the extent to which I have responded to them.
He further entreated the media to be devoid of misinformation and urged them not to be used as puppets for partisan purposes.
As all of you know, we have had to seek the collaboration of the International Monetary Fund to repair in the short term our public finance. This collaboration with the IMF has been the government on its part is having to implement difficult and painful measures to get our nation out of the situation in which it finds itself. As natural as it should, there would be those who would seek for narrow partisan ends to spew truths, untruths about these measures, with the ultimate goal of being able to misinform the Ghanaian people and creating disaffection for government. I would urge you not to fall prey to the schemes of such persons.
President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Albert Jumfo, pleaded with President Akufo-Addo and his government to bring back media engagement with senior editors and stakeholders to ensure the right to information is fully utilized.
What we are not happy about is the cancellation of the annual engagement of the media, senior editors, veterans, and stakeholders. This must be restored. We believe that the engagement go a long way in bridging the information gap between the government and the media.
The dinner, which is the first of its kind in the association, to be held more frequently as time goes on. Jacqueline Yeboah's report, read to you.
And rice is the most sought out for foodstuff during this festive season. We all know about that. There has been a massive campaign for people to purchase locally produced rice. Producers say there is a lot in stock for you this festive season, but what happens next, of course, in terms of pushing the industry? Joining me now is president of the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body, Nana Ejay Aye II. Thank you so much, sir, and it's such a pleasure to have you here on the Pulse.
Thank you.
What would you say about the patronage, the level of patronage for locally produced rice here in our country?
Well, thank you for bringing us here. I represent the value chain, the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body. What we do is we advocate for the production and consumption of local rice. Yes, this year, if you compare what we have gone through for the past 10 years to now, I think this year has been good. Okay. Why? I don't know, maybe the campaign, the advocacy is going on well, and also people are seeing the good work and the hard work of the value chain from production to marketing.
Let's talk about production, for instance. The notion has always been the case that, well, we don't have the capacity, a reason for which, well, you're not able to supply to meet the demand on the market. Is this a fair perception to hold?
Yes, it is. See, if you look at the industry in Ghana, rain-fed agriculture in terms of rice about 70%, and irrigation is about 30%. If you look at our consumption here, we are doing over 800,000 metric tons a year. Currently, we are producing just about half of that. Okay. Do we have the capacity to meet the local consumption? Right. Yes, we can do that. But if we don't improve on the production area, you see, rice depends on water. If you're going to produce rice and you're only going to do once in a year, forget it. You can't get it. Right. What we want to do is government to develop the bottom valleys. When I say bottom valleys, what I mean is when you come to the middle part of Ghana, Central region, Eastern, Ashanti region, Western North and Western region, and some part of the Volta region, we have a lot of good lands there that have not been developed. And farmers do that, go there, prepare the land themselves, and produce just once in a year. If we don't develop these areas, believe me, we cannot achieve whatever we want.
But it's a whole industry, and I'm sure that there are some key priority interventions and policy interventions that you'd want to see, say, from government, because it goes hand in hand. Government is trying to show up local production so that we don't depend too much on importation, but at the same time, we need policy measures. What are some of the key expectations in terms of that policy intervention that you're on the lookout for?
You see, if you look at agric in general, you go to the Western world, you realize that people in agriculture don't go to the bank for commercial loans. There's a special loans for our funds for agriculture. We don't have that here. You understand? And that is a big challenge for us. Okay, anybody who goes to the bank for money to do agriculture at this current rate, you are going to fail. We need a special policy that says that, look, we are reserving an X amount for agriculture so that the agric industry can thrive. Recently, we heard government saying that they are not going to support forex for importation
yes.
rice. Okay, when I heard this story, it was an okay story.
Many say that was a period for you to take advantage. Did you really take advantage of that?
Yes. I mean, what is taking advantage? That's why I'm here today, trying to let the public know our concerns. Okay? Look, if government says he's stopping the support for forex for the import of rice, I want to have some details government should come out and say that by doing that, we are going to save an X amount of money, and this X amount is going to the local production. Yeah. Then I can go gaga, I can be so happy. Yeah. But for now, I haven't heard anything. It was just a highlight. We are waiting next year to see exactly what government means by not supporting Forex for the importation of rice. We want to see the details, then we can start commenting on it. But for now, we are doing what we can. But the policymakers should know that, just look at for the past 3 years, when COVID came, what did we do? India took some measures not to export rice. I think Thailand also did a similar thing. They should inform us that something must be done about rice importation.
But very often the comparison has been made about the quality of products you put on the Ghanaian market. Do you meet the same standards just as any other rice-producing country?
You see, anybody who wants to compare the local rice or the Ghana rice to the importation rice, let me tell you, that person will not see any difference. For the past 10 years, we have metamorphosed from the broken rice and everything to just go onto the market today and look for Ghana-made rice, and you see that there's no difference between the importation. If anything at all, ours is healthier, fresh than the importation rice. Okay, so don't let anybody lie to you that we don't meet the consumers' standard for rice. Yeah.
Are you looking forward to more partnerships in the years to come? Because obviously you're talking about challenges in terms of access to capital and expansion and all of that. What measures as a body are you putting in place to increase production through the various partnerships that you're seeking to get from next year?
Yes, you see, as we speak with you, I don't know whether if you've heard about Jospon.
Yeah.
Yes. He's working with us, including all the stakeholders. He's going into rice. We are looking for partners like this. Okay. Most of the time when farmers or people in agriculture talk about partnership, right away people think we are looking for free stuff.
Free money.
Yeah, free money. That is not true. The businessman, the farmer today is a businessman. Okay. All that we are looking for is a genuine partnership with the body like us, okay, to produce rice, develop the rice. Look, in terms of rice production, you need the development of the land, good mechanization service, fertilizer, and mailing and everything. If you look at all this value chain that I've mentioned, we have developed in all the areas. All that we need, it's some injection. I call government the enabler. Right. They should enable, they should create an avenue for people like me to go to the bank to be able to go buy tractors, or there should be some sort of a mechanization centers whereby I'm from the Asen North area. Right. I should be able to go to a mechanization and go to the agric department there, rent a tractor to go and develop my field, expand my field, and bring the tractor back. I produce whatever I have to produce, then pay. Okay, there should be something like that. Otherwise, believe me, we're going to be facing a lot of problems.
You started a program, I think, late last year. This year, which is is it Rice Festival?
The Rice Festival.
That such an initiative has been lauded by many as part of the moves to encourage and change. The attitude of the public towards consumption of locally produced rice. How often do you intend to scale that up? And what are we likely to see? Is it just the Ghana Rice Festival, or there are more things that you may be doing in the coming days?
No. The Ghana Rice Festival has been we've been doing this for the past 10 years now. Because of COVID, we stopped in 2019 and we want to revive it. You see, it's our general platform to advocate for the consumption of the Ghana rice. I'm refusing to use local rice because, normally when you use the word local, people think it's inferior.
Ghana made.
So, we use the Ghana rice. We are not going to stop advocating for the local rice, the Ghana rice. You see, if you look at the agri sector, it employs a lot of our youth and our sisters, brothers, and mothers. Take the agri sector away. What do we have? Apart from the agri sector that employs majority of our people, no industry can match up to it. So I want government to look at this area. When you come to my village, I'm a traditional ruler from that same north. I have a lot of youth in my community not doing anything. When we started rice farming, we brought a lot of youth that would have come to Accra to sell on the street doing rice farming. We want government to be looking at these things. Okay, rice can contribute a lot for our unemployment youth. So I am sitting here today to answer your question. Are we going to be doing a lot for apart from the rice festival? Yes, that is why I am here. That is why I'm advocating for more injection, more private people like Jospon, who is working with us today to go into the rice sector. Give him in the next 2-3 years, you see he's going to do something fantastic, something big to raise the rice industry.
And as we wrap up, let me just give you a few seconds. Christmas is here. A lot of people may be opting for rice. What will be your message in terms of consumption of Ghana rice as we wrap up?
Yes, why not? I think this is the time we all eat rice. I mean, these days rice has been a staple. It's a staple now that we all eat every day. But it's a special time for us today. It's Christmas. We all use rice for the Christmas festivities. Go out there, seek for the made in Ghana rice and buy them. They are as good and even much, much better than the imported rice.
And that's coming from Nana Ejeyeye II. We're grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us here on The Pulse. And it's 3 days to Christmas. Of course, you know that shoppers are frantically making some last-minute purchases in various markets across the country. When our cameras went to the Makula market in the regional capital, some buyers said they have been able to purchase all items on their list, while others also said the prices of goods far exceed their budgets. They've been speaking to Hannah Odami and Anna Nketia in the following report.
Lots and lots of people in the markets for their last-minute shopping ahead of the festive season, which is very close. Regardless of the amount of money they have in their pockets, each of them tell us they have been able to at least purchase an item. Some of them also say they'll have to reduce the quantity of items that they give out as gifts this year. Others say they will have to reduce the number of people they give out gifts to. But for others, it's been a good year, and so they'll have to enjoy. That's what we've been finding out at the Central Business District of Accra.
Oh, prices now, they say dollar from Tino. Niam prices now form. As Matonya for member. Niama de metimiato. Eyama me pa, meniaje pa. Chris niama ne above from.
So actually, I know that to go a bit high. So when I was coming, I added something before coming, but only for me to come to see that it's higher than how I budgeted. So the things I need to get, I need to decrease some or not to get some at all. Yeah. So I think I need to reduce the things I need to give out so that everybody can get some. You see, I can get like how maybe I'm doing a package for someone for maybe 10 items. I need to reduce it to 5 so that everybody can get some. Yeah, that's going to be.
Oh, sisi ade ekoso. Last week but now emu yesuru, but sisi ade ekoso fine.
So mommy is saying that Christmas shopping is going well and she's still buying. She's not done because things are good. She's been able to purchase everything that she needs to buy.
Well, we are managing because like last week we were told that the dollar was 8 cedis. Currently today, 12 cedi. So you can imagine we've used our money to buy some, some food items like rice and something like that. And today we bought it at a cheaper price last week. Today it's up again. What are we up to? We know this global something's everywhere, but this Ghana only is too much, even 3 much, not too much. Because if you have 200 cedis, a chicken now is 100 cedis. So please, can they help us?
From the Central Business District of Accra, I am Hannah Odami for Joy News.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com for updates. We'll see you again. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Thanks for watching.